So I want to take a few moments to talk about despair. The definition is to lose all hope. It's an intransitive verb, right? That means to lose all hope, to be overcome by a sense of futility or defeat. And just those words alone are extremely powerful in the mode that it puts your mind. It's not even to say that you're losing some hope. It's literally to lose all hope. Every bit of it. I want to give this topic the respect that it deserves. Because people who live with despair, they feel it in their bones every day they wake up. How do we go on? How do we continue? It's not even about thriving, excelling. When you're going through periods where you feel despair, you're just in survival mode. You're not interested in working on your craft or developing any skills. You're not interested in creating anything new or finding the beauty in things that you see. You are in strict survival mode. One step at a time, and even that feels hard. It can be debilitating. And as the name implies, if you have no hope, then just making the next step can feel like a tremendous task. When there's no clear direction on what you're supposed to do, when there's no guidebook or, shoulder to lean on for guidance, no one to ask for help. And I think when you have all of those things stacked together, it's only logical to feel despair. But I ask, are all those things that we assumed, are all of those things actually the case? Do you actually have no guidance? Do you actually have no one to talk to lean on for understanding? Do you actually have no one that can help you? Like, actually. I know there's that part of you that might be like, nah, I don't want to reach out. I don't want to be vulnerable with this person, or I don't have no one to do that with. But actually, do you actually not have anyone to talk to? I think when we start to assume too many things, then we can pigeonhole ourselves into a belief that we can then believe, maybe we are hopeless. Maybe this despair is just all I feel now. And I think when we start to internalize that, and then to say, this is something that I'm just going through, this is something that no one understands, this is something that I have to fight alone. That's when you can get yourself into, for lack of a better term, trouble, right? That's a troubling scenario to be in, where you can convince yourself that you are completely isolated from the rest of humanity and that there's no bridge There's nothing that can bridge the gap between you and another soul. Even in the most tumultuous of times, I'm sure you can find some connection. I'm sure that you can find some way of bridging the gap between your experience and someone who can understand. I'm sure of it. And it may not sound like something that's exciting. Like, you may not be like extremely thrilled about that. Oftentimes we find that if we just keep going, we can generally tackle most obstacles. We just need to try again, maybe a little bit more fervently, maybe a little bit harder, and then we'll get it this next time. And I think that's a great mentality to have when, at first. But I do think that when you decide, because that's what you're doing, you're making a decision that you're not going to lean on anyone, you're going to figure this out. And I think having that ability to kind of guide yourself through your own issues is very good. But also recognizing when you may have the inability to do that is also very good. And the sooner you can recognize that, hey, this may not be something that I'm built for on my own, instead of internalizing that I can't do this, there's no hope, I feel despair, you're instantly putting blinders up to any potentiality of getting help, right? And I think for a certain subset of people, we don't like to ask for help. It makes us feel like we're incapable. It makes us feel like we couldn't figure it out on our own. We're not able to. If I can't figure it out, then what am I, right? This is useless, right? This is pointless. Nah, I think those are indicators. When you're having an obstacle that you can't immediately find a solution for, that's an indicator. That's not a sign that you're less than or incapable, or you should just keep going at it until you win. I mean, maybe you could try. Sure, I mean, absolutely, keep trying. But I think recognizing when there's an option for assistance from someone outside of you, someone else, that's really when I think we can make great progress in, those obstacles in life. And it's not just like the literal obstacle that you're trying to tackle. It's not like just accomplishing this task, getting help to do that. It's growing as a person to recognize scenarios where you would benefit from reaching out. And it's flexing that muscle where, hey, can you help me with this? And it feels awkward. It will absolutely feel awkward to ask for help if you are not accustomed to asking for help. But I think that's the thing about humanity. That's the thing about, just being a person, is that we are all kind of sharing very similar existences. They're not exactly the same. We each are in our own kind of microcosm of society. But there are general overarching themes. And this is not just like themes that we're dealing with today. These are themes that humans have existed with for thousands of years. Dealing with power struggles, dealing with oppression, or dealing with, inhabitable or harsh environmental conditions. Just think about like Alaska for a second, and I don't know anyone. I've never been to Alaska, but I know it's cold there. I know it's cold most of the time there. And how do they get on, right? They've built essentially mechanisms of keeping themselves cool in igloos. Like they're literally using ice to keep them. I'm not cool, but keep themselves warm. They're using ice to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so someone figured that out, and then they shared it with everyone else and said, "Hey, dude," or a group of people figured it out. I don't know who invented the igloo, or who thought about it, or who thought it was a good idea, but an entire civilization of people are now benefiting from one person's idea, which is, that's incredible, right? It's incredible that we can actually go out in the world and our contributions can be a positive influence on those around us. So to invert that, when we are kind of going through situations where we are unable to kind of figure out a solution, maybe someone else already made the igloo. Maybe someone else already figured it out. And then we just need to kind of tap in. And, if you're shy or whatever and you don't want to ask someone directly for help, there's a whole thing called the internet that exists where you can learn vicariously through millions of people's experiences. And it's the most insane thing that I feel like we're not fully taking advantage of. I'm sure we are to an extent. I'm sure there's many people who realize that the connectedness of the internet is like the greatest thing that society has to offer at this point. Since the telephone, right? Like, communication is critical for understanding, and I think oftentimes we'll get stuck if we think that we're an island. Oftentimes we might be like just pigeonholing ourselves into a situation where we don't necessarily need to be there. We don't need to be in this situation. We just chose to be there because we're stubborn. And if that's your vibe, that's your vibe. I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you that it's not the only way of existing, and it's probably not the most efficient way in terms of growth and development. Just facts, right? You can learn a lot on your own, don't get me wrong, but not everything. I say that with a question. Maybe given thousands of years or millions of years, you could potentially learn everything that you need to learn if you could live that long. But we have a very short period of life, and that's the crazy thing about it too. It's like life is super short. It's insane, and we have approximately 100 years to go ahead and leave a legacy, to make an impact. How many thousands of inventors over the years have really shaped society, like Nikola Tesla and Edison, more or less. All these figures who have had really shaped kind of the landscape of things today. Right? And that's not even just in the space of technology, it's in the space of, politics, societal concerns, peacekeeping, nations working together. These things were built through so many years of alliances and regional. Look, all I'm saying is that everything we see today is the result of everything that was before, and we each have approximately 100 years to do something that impacts that for the future. And I think we can get the most out of that just by tapping in with each other. And I think when we can realize that we're not that far away, help is not that far away, understanding is not that far away, but then I think there's no room for despair at that point. Because how can you lose hope when you can literally look through generations and see all the amazing things that we've done as a society, as a humanity, you know, the things that we were able to accomplish, and also the horrible things that we've done as well. It goes both ways, and I think that just knowing that we each have the autonomous ability to decide what our actions are going to be. Granted, some people may have better executive function than others, but that's neither here nor there. We all can decide what we choose to do, and just realize that you can have a crazy huge impact on everyone or on someone. There's really no room for despair. It's just in your mind.